I used to get colds or flus or whatever you want to call them every year, several of them in winter. Then when I discovered or found out about vitamin D, and I was taking 10,000 units every day or whenever I remembered in the winter. Um, and I never got a cold again, basically. 20 years or something without a cold, whereas I thought it was normal. I reckon that with the right nutrition and removal of toxins, that probably you could empty 90% of the hospital beds, within a month. If I told customers that water hydrates you without a double-blind proof, I could be in jail for telling you that water hydrates you.
Right. I am really looking forward to this conversation today because today we are going to be talking about everything you need to know about vitamin D, simplified but backed by science. Because vitamin D isn't just a vitamin, it's actually also a hormone that is really important for every part of our health. And there's no one I'd rather be having this conversation with than the amazing Clive DeCarle, who is a returning guest to the Live, Love, Learn podcast. Now, just a very little bit about Clive before we dive deep. Clive is a very well known advocate for natural health. His journey started over 40 years ago after a very unfortunate medical treatment left him with rheumatoid arthritis and type 1 diabetes. Conventional medicine offered no cure, but Clive found relief through supplements like magnesium and vitamin C. This sparked a lifelong passion for natural healing using vitamins and minerals, and we are very lucky because Clive shares his journey with all of us so that he does the research that we don't have to. So, Clive, thank you so much for being here today. How are you doing, and why are you looking so brown?
Thanks, Catherine. Just firstly, so people don't get too excited, although curing rheumatoid arthritis is easy, I'm still type 1 diabetic 40 odd years later, so I haven't been able to overcome that. However, pretty much everything else is overcomable. And the answer to the sun thing is I try to get as much of it as I possibly can. I've just been abroad for a bit where it rained almost continually, but
Mm.
I've got an ex-NASA plasma light, and that's the power of 3.5 suns if you sit like 6 feet in front of it. And so if I'm not getting enough vitamin D, I'll just sit on that for 10 minutes or half an hour or whatever I feel like and get all the vitamin D and a bit of a tan as well. I've also got what's called a soul tan. Just unplug myself. There's a device from, imagine, 20s or 30s. It's a long wave generator. And it's giving up a nice gentle heat and doing my body a whole load of good. Long waves are very healthy things.
I love it. And I think we'll finish off with that because not only is Clive so knowledgeable about supplements and has his own range, but also has the most amazing range of healing technologies that he's got. Not only does he use, but supplies as well. But today, vitamin D, I think it's such an important conversation, Clive, because I haven't had nearly enough this winter. My animals haven't had enough. The plants haven't had enough exposure to sunshine. And everything we will see will be get out in the sunshine. But that's easier said than done these days, depending where you live and what they're doing with geoengineering in your area. So, can we start off by just a little bit of an overview about why is vitamin D so crucial to our health?
Well, apart from getting a sun mimicking lamp, um, our ancestors got by in colder climates, darker climates than ours, with food. For instance, the sort of Scandinavians would ferment fish and have them in a big barrel outside the house, or rotting fish, basically fermenting fish, I should say, and that gave them all the vitamin D they needed. I mean, my mother was into giving children cod liver oil because of the vitamin D. And
I
of course,
had to have that. It's
it's
great.
horrible. It's horrible, but I didn't realize what she was giving me was rancid. Uh,
Mm.
there's a company called Green Pastures out there which sells fermented various fish oils, and uh, they can come in capsules, so you don't actually have to taste them. But most people, with any fish product, you'd keep it in the fridge. But people have got cod liver oil tablets not in the fridge. How is that going to be good? The
Yeah,
chefs aren't storing them in the fridge. If it's fermented, it's a different matter. But our ancestors got it that way, and of course, our ancestors were outside more.
yeah,
I mean, I'm sort of just outside the sun, but if I move forward, I'd be in the sun. But there's glass in the way, and
yeah.
a lot of the beneficial rays won't go through glass. People think, "Oh, I'm getting the sun by being by the window." Well, not really.
This is a good thing because most of us are inside so much more, are under all sorts of artificial lights, and are just not getting out enough because, the time when we would normally need to be out getting the vitamin C from the natural sunlight, people are at work and sat in front of a computer screen most of the time. So, in terms of vitamin C and its role, vitamin D and its role in the body, what are some of the main things that it impacts, and do humans make their own?
Just before I answer that, I've got a noisy bee trying to get pollen out of this bunch of plants, and it's making such a buzzing sound. I'm going to move it out of the way.
Love it. They always know what's best for them.
So, I mean, one of the most important things, I suppose, is happiness. Without vitamin D, I mean, how much better do we feel when the sun's out, like today or something? Suddenly, oh, life is good all of a sudden. And so, if you're deprived of vitamin D, and everybody is in winter in England, you can't help but, unless you're doing something like the cod liver oil or something, everybody's low on vitamin D. And that can be devastating. I mean, I used to get colds or flus or whatever you want to call them every year, several of them in winter. Then when I discovered or found out about vitamin D, and I was taking 10,000 units every day or whenever I remembered in the winter. Um, and I never got a cold again, basically. 20 years or something without a cold, whereas I thought it was normal. I thought it was unavoidable. But people might need to add vitamin C to that to avoid the colds. They might need to make sure they've got enough zinc. But I mean, that's basically the key to not having a cold. So vitamin D, happiness and your resistance to infections. I mean, one of the big things about vitamin D is that if a doctor has ever said to you, you've got an autoimmune disease, A, they were lying,
Mm.
and B, vitamin D could be one of the big components as to why you haven't managed to recover. I mean, in my opinion, if doctors told the truth, instead of saying you've got an autoimmune disease, they would apologize for having given you some pharmaceutical earlier on in life, be it a jab or a pill or an antibiotic or whatever, that caused this long-term, seemingly long-term problem. So I think autoimmune is like an excuse for doctors so it's your body is now fighting against itself. No, don't be ridiculous. You poisoned me. That's my view. And that's what happened to me. I took an antibiotic, as you said. Next thing I know, I'm in hospital. They poisoned me, but they said, oh, it's just bad luck. You no. Anyway, so vitamin D is vital in most people's recovery. I mean, if you find that your symptoms are worse in winter, well, it's pretty obvious that vitamin D is an issue.
That's why I love the teaching because so many people, I love science, but I love common sense more. And this
Yeah.
is what I think is so great with you, Clive. You've got so much science to back up what you're talking about, but equally you show people the common sense questions to ask. And that's the number one thing I would point out to anyone listening to this. Are you, are your symptoms worse, whether it's mental health or physical health? So we know it's really important for mood. We know it's really important for the immune system. What about its hormonal role? How does that play a part in our health, Clive?
Well, initially they called vitamin D a vitamin, but technically now they would have called it a hormone. And, you know, whether it's a vitamin, a mineral, or a hormone or whatever, somehow in my mind, a hormone sounds so much more important, but I don't really think anything's more important than another. It's one great big whole. I mean, just getting back to happiness for a minute, how many millions of people are on antidepressant drugs right now. And if you're one of those people, but you do feel happier in summer and more glum in winter, well, again, vitamin D rather, seems an obvious thing to try. A lot of people just feel happier on vitamin D. I mean, I'd also add magnesium to that, as we've discussed in a past program. Those two together, so many people stop being depressed. You know, nobody's low on an antidepressant drug, but pretty much everybody, certainly me, unless I do something about it, I'm likely to be low on vitamin C, vitamin D, and magnesium. Most people are, let alone the other vitamins and minerals that are missing from modern food.
Yeah, and that's a big thing, isn't it? Is our modern food supply is so deficient now, not only in terms of the soil that it's grown on, the pollution that it's exposed to, the chemicals it's often exposed to, but also the way it's stored. I mean, you and I, when we grew up, we didn't have these foods from all around the world. We didn't have these great big supermarkets that are filled with loads of things that aren't real food. Our parents still went to the greengrocers and the butchers and the bakers. And now everything's stored for so long before we consume it. That must play a huge part in the levels of vitamins and minerals that we're consuming.
Well, bananas are a great example. In the old days, they would rush the bananas in the fastest banana boat possible. Now, they dip them in chemicals which stop deterioration. Then, after they've been shipped, they take them out and dump them in another vat of chemicals, which now allow ripening to happen.
Oh,
That sounds safe.
I mean, we could go off on a lot of tangents about the madness of someone that invents things like this. But I think most people are getting the picture that it's very, very difficult for us, particularly in Northern Hemisphere climates, particularly to get enough vitamin D. What about children, and what about how much is enough? Because I know the labeling standards, Clive, are pretty misleading, really, in terms of how much they tell people to take. So, what can you tell people about how do they know they're deficient and how much should they be taking?
Okay, well, if they're getting infections, if they're unhappy, those would be two fairly obvious signs. If they seem worse in winter. Um, I mean, generally with children, assuming it's safe, because I mean, a good example, should you give honey to somebody, a kid that's less than 1 year old? No, their body can't handle honey that young, but people don't necessarily know. But um, with a child, generally, I would go by weight. If they're half your weight, give them half as much. But when I discovered I was vitamin D deficient, I rang up the doctor because they did free tests. I said, look, I think I'm vitamin D deficient. Could you do a test? And the doctor, who must have been, I don't know, 50 years old, said, well, I've never done one of those before. Anyway, so he did the test. And a few days later, he rings me up and he said, how did you know you were so low? And it turns out I was virtually off the charts low. And I said, well, it's December. I
Mm,
think if you tested more people, you'd find that everybody was low. And so he prescribed me the wrong thing. He prescribed me 400 IUs, which is very little, vitamin D, along with calcium. And that's really stupid. Uh, so I don't want the calcium. I'm eating enough foods that contain calcium, don't need it. Most people don't. Doctors are wrong. They think, well, your bones are depleted, you've got osteoporosis and stuff. It must be the calcium that's lacking. That's what bones are made of. But actually, it's the magnesium, the vitamin D, and the vitamin K2 that are the remedies, or lack of it is the reason for people getting osteoporosis. I mean, osteoporosis and bone health, how many old people fall over and break a bone?
yeah.
So a lot of the times they have fallen over and broken the bone, but quite often it is the bone is broken and they've fallen, because they haven't had the vitamin D, vitamin K2, and magnesium that they need. You know, I reckon that with the right nutrition and removal of toxins, that probably you could empty 90% of the hospital beds, within a month.
Yes. I completely agree with you because the difference, I mean, I know from my own experience, just the difference. I had, putting this in inverted commas, glandular fever very badly as a teenager. And
After being vaccinated.
um, well,
That's when I got my glandular fever and
I
all my
did have the
mates.
childhood vaccines, but I hadn't had any recently when I got
Oh,
it.
right, okay.
So because I got it when I was 17 and I hadn't had any childhood vaccines since early teens, but I had all the ones that we got given at school. And it was really interesting because that's what really set me off down this path to natural healing because the doctors couldn't do anything to help. And I discovered some key, very simple solutions like vitamins and working with some essentials and some detoxing, which transformed it. But I think one of the things that's quite we see a lot now, Clive, is what impact does people's stress levels and the state of their microbiome have on their ability to absorb things like vitamin D?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a very good question. I mean, anybody who's ever had a drug, particularly an antibiotic, will have greatly reduced the number of good bacteria that, assuming they were born naturally rather than cesarean, that they would have picked up from mum.
Mm,
So, yes, we can correct some of those deficiencies of the good bacteria by eating live yogurt or sauerkraut or taking probiotics, whatever it is. But there are well, there's more than one section to our sort of whole gut sort of system. And there are microbes at the top, in simplified form, there are microbes at the bottom. Now, uh, it's great taking, probiotics from yogurt or whatever it is, but what we really want to do is to bring the friendly bacteria that we were born with back to life.
mm,
So the friendly bacteria, what does it like to eat for breakfast? Well, it likes to eat oligosaccharides. And oligosaccharides are primitive sugars. And in fact, supposedly, if we're eating the sort of caveman hunter-gatherer type diet, we would have actually had to rely on a lot of tubers, a lot of root, sort of veg type stuff. And they're full of oligosaccharides, apparently. Anyway, so when I found this out, my friend started making a product with about 9 oligosaccharides, which we sell on the site. It's called Panaceum. And so while probiotics are great, uh, taking this product, Panaceum, a bit like Panacea, a lot of people notice just within days that something's changed because our immune system is basically in our guards primarily. But without vitamin D, without so many of the synergistic components that you need, I mean, to make vitamin C work properly, you need magnesium and vice
yeah,
versa. Most of these things will go together. Um, so, I would suggest that if you're happier as a result of taking vitamin D, you'll be more resistant to disease because you're feeling more resistant to anything if you're happy.
absolutely. It goes together so well. Now, with vitamin D, why is it that there's D3, there's D2? What's the difference? What should people be looking for what they're taking?
Okay. Like everything, it depends how it's made. Vitamin D2 you can make yourself if you get some mushrooms and if it's sunny, put them out in a really sunny spot for a couple of days, and they will absorb the vitamin D from the sunshine or whatever that energy is. And now you've got vitamin D in mushrooms, but in England in winter, that's just not going to work.
Mm.
Um, so that's D2. D3, they usually get from either chicken feathers or algae or lichen or yeah. So if people don't mind eating a product from chicken feathers, you can also get it, I think, from sheep's wool. Getting the vitamin D that way, that is the least expensive way to do it, and it comes as a tasteless oil, and we sell that version on the website along with a vegan version, and basically it comes in little gel caps, and you crack them open with your teeth. No point in swallowing the gel cap. Just suck the oil out. It's tasteless, and chuck the gel caps. And I haven't got much patience for anything, particularly taking a supplement every day. So generally, if I'm not getting the sun, and the sun, if you've got a decent whack of it, probably last a week or something, I might take five at once, take 50,000 IUs rather than just 10, and feel I'm done for the week. But equally, if somebody rang me up and said, look, I'm really suffering, I've got the flu or whatever, I might say, look, take 50,000 now, take 100,000 now, 10. And I used to work with a medical doctor 20 years ago, and I remember one day he said that you got a really bad cold or flu. And I said, take 50,000 IUs of vitamin D. He rang me up about 3 hours later, so yeah, all the symptoms have ended.
Wow.
So we do another product called Immuno, which has vitamin C, vitamin D, and NAC in it, N-acetylcysteine. And if somebody felt they were coming down with something, take five of those, and probably that'll turn it off.
Absolutely brilliant. So there's a lot of talk, Clive, about, there's so many synthetic vitamins and minerals on the
Yeah.
market. So you've mentioned some of the sources that you've got is from the sheep's wool, from the algae or the lichen. What should people be looking out for in terms of if they're buying a vitamin D to make sure that they're getting a natural version? And one of the things that's always worried me about the sheep's wool source is, we all know that sheep get dipped in horrible
Yeah,
chemicals.
it's generally chicken feathers, actually.
Is it?
Yeah,
Right.
that's the norm.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, the great thing about the chicken feather solution is it's fabulously inexpensive. You
Yeah.
know, you buy 1 month's worth of the algae version. For that, you could have bought a whole year's worth of the chicken version. And I personally, generally speaking, take the chicken version.
Yeah.
Um, I find it more convenient. The other versions are in capsules, and I do, yeah, personally, yeah, that's what I do. I don't go for the expensive version, but I mean, I'm not too worried about the bird's feathers absorbing the vitamin D and it being extracted. I don't see that as a terrible thing. I mean, there are other animal things that are absolutely horrendous, but that one I don't have much problem with.
Mm. And I assume that, I mean, they're obviously going to be using feathers from chickens that have gone for the food supply anyway.
Yeah, no, this is a risk, but equally one might say, well, the oceans might be polluted, or yeah,
Yeah.
God. But yeah, if you've got the money, buy the more natural stuff. Why not? One of the interesting things over the last few years, well, it's almost relentless, there are hit pieces online or in the newspapers, which with vitamin D, they say, well, it's rat poison.
I
Rat,
thought I was going to come on and ask that because every time I put something up about vitamin D, that's what you get bombarded with. Yeah.
that's right. According to AI, it's a myth, but I asked AI, which AIs are better than you? And they said, well, this one's better at this and this one's better at that. And then they got to Gemini, Google's one. And they said, well, Gemini hallucinates, i.e., makes things up more than the rest of them. Doesn't say the rest of them don't make things up.
Yeah.
But um, where were we?
About the rat poison
Oh,
because
yeah.
the big
So,
thing that goes around on the internet. Yeah.
so A, we're not rats. B, even if it's true, which it could well be, we're not rats. And it's always about the dosage. I mean, you want a cure for leukemia, research arsenic, right? Arsenic in tiny quantities has some very, very interesting properties, but will kill you in big quantities. And I'm sure it's the same with almost everything. You can drown in water.
Absolutely. And this is the thing, isn't it? It's all about understanding the sourcing and the quality. So in terms of your supplements that you do, you've already mentioned a few of the names. So I've got the normal vitamin D3 10,000 units ones here. How do you ensure the quality of the supplements that you're providing, Carl?
Over the 20 odd years I've been supplying them, one gets to know the suppliers basically. And, I experiment a lot. I'm constantly trying things myself and see whether I notice any difference. I'm not very sensitive to stuff. So if I do notice a difference, well, that's interesting,
Yeah,
at least for me. Um, so, yeah, I mean, for instance, the vitamin C we do is specifically non-genetically modified, whereas 80, 90% of the stuff on the market is comes from genetically modified material. Um, So, over the years, you get to know this stuff and what's good and who's the good manufacturer, who's the bad one. Then comes down to who's been taken over recently. There's a
Yes.
company called Pure Encapsulations, who I felt were fantastic. It's all as pure could be. Then they got taken over, and somebody just last week said, "Oh, I'm taking that product," and I looked it up, and totally different formula to what it was before they got taken over. But supplement companies are direct competition to multi-billion dollar businesses. Why pay 20 quid for a year's supply of tablets when you could get the NHS to pay 20,000 quid? There's a fabulous meme going around of this lady going to see a lady doctor, and the lady says, "I've been thinking about eating more fruits and vegetables." And the doctor says, "Don't let's jump to conclusions. Here's a tablet."
Yes. I know it says it all. So most people at the moment, they're quite stressed. They're stuck inside a lot of the day. So you recommend taking it ideally daily, or if not, a couple of times a week, and really monitoring your body's feedback.
Well, monitoring you're going to experience anyway. No need to monitor it. You'll just experience it or not. Um, it depends on your diet partially as to how much you might require. But I mean, for instance, let's say magnesium. For every molecule of sugar that you eat, you need 50 molecules of magnesium to counteract it.
Right.
So if somebody's having cereal for breakfast and they're biscuit at tea time or whatever it is, just that can deplete their magnesium levels and everything else relatively. So yeah, we can safely assume we're all low on everything. And I put together this pack. I think we sent one to you, the 30-day rejuvenation pack.
It's
It's likely to last much
fantastic.
longer than 30 days, but that the idea is that in 30 days you follow the instructions, there's a really good chance that you're going to feel significantly better. And it may be on day one. So if you're low on magnesium, for example, it just could be day one. Similarly with vitamin D, vitamin D works very fast. So in one day, you might feel a change, particularly if you take a lot. I mean, you know, professional doctors might say, oh, that could be dangerous taking such amounts, but people have been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm sure long term you could possibly get an overdose of anything, but um, I don't think it's something particularly to worry about. But with everything I say, as Mark Twain said, don't believe what you read in health books because a misprint might kill you.
So
Anything I've
true.
said, I might have misspoken. So, research it for yourself. It's self-education, self-empowerment. Obviously, as you know, is what it's about.
Absolutely key. Now, tell us to finish off about your secret health club and what people can expect if they join that and how they can join.
Yeah. So 2014, a Quango run by the UK government made me take down all my videos.
Yeah.
And since then, you know, advertising standards, trading standards, everybody was at one point knocking on the door trying to stop me. I mean, I used to use the word, this super illegal, the word cancer on my supplement website, and they rushed in. You can't say that, so I changed it to C dot 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 dot. They rushed back. You can't do that. We know exactly what you mean. And now we've censored our supplement site so much we can't even tell you any. If I told customers that water hydrates you without a double-blind proof, I could be in jail for telling you that water hydrates you. I mean, the laws are insane to protect the pharmaceutical giants,
Yeah.
basically. So to counter that, I started a private club called secrethealthclub.com. So all the information they wanted me to remove is there, plus a load more. So that was 11 years ago now. So we've built up quite a library, not too much that's overwhelming, but a library of articles and videos and so on, that if you've got whatever your health problem is, you look up H for health problem, whatever, and hopefully there's some quick answers that I feel over my years of, discovering this stuff, I think are the most useful. And it's basically a pay to join site. However, there's a big part of me that wants it to be free, but because I've got some staff and stuff, I've got to charge something. However, if somebody can't afford the membership, which is about, I don't know, 80 something quid a year, then send me an email, info@clivedecale.com, say how much you can afford. If you can't afford anything, I'll sign you up for nothing. It's not a problem.
It's fantastic information on there. And for anyone watching, I'll put all Clive's links below for how you can get his supplements, how you can join the Secret Health Club, which is so, so important. And I think in times like this, everyone watching this knows what the censorship's like. It's mad. I have my own natural product shop, herbal shop for animals, and I was constantly in trouble. You literally couldn't say anything useful at all on the website. And I still suffer from that for a lot of the things that I do. So this is why we have to support things like that Carl's done. Carl, why do I keep calling you Carl? It's because I've just been speaking to my friend. Because this Sacred Health Club, this is where we can really share knowledge, really empower yourself with the information that you need for you and what you're experiencing now, and preventative is absolutely key. Anything that I've missed that you want to tell people about vitamin D that we should have covered?
Well, heart health,
Oh, heart health. Yeah.
cardiovascular events, very important for that. Whenever I use the word cancer, I spell it with a K for legal reasons. So yeah, that one. Obesity,
Mhm.
things like IBS. Um, I mean, there's so much. Vitamin D is going to help everybody if they're lacking it, right across the board, from the tip of your head to the tip of your toes. It's just vital. We're meant to be out in the sunshine. We were hunter-gatherers at one point. We're out there
Yeah.
farming, gathering, hunting, whatever. And now we're indoors watching a blue screen.
And even when we are outside, unfortunately, a lot of us have seen these weird streaks in the sky, and they're doing all they can to block out the sunshine. And those
They
of us
are.
that are gardeners are certainly really noticing the difference.
Yeah, no, no, it's massive and so obvious, but people don't generally look up. I mean, your listeners, viewers obviously do, but
Mm.
ridiculous how many people say, what stripes in the sky?
I know it is frightening, and you've only got to look at children's pictures from nursery school going back over the years to see what clouds should look like.
Exactly.
So
And Disney are putting chemtrails in all the old movies.
I heard that. I absolutely heard that. And this is where we're so easy. People have got to use their common sense. And the one thing I would say is, since I've got much more regimented about my supplements, particularly for me, it's vitamin D and magnesium. Magnesium has a huge impact on me. It really does. So much so now that I'd never not go back. I take your tablets, I take your magnesium complex. And I also use a topical magnesium spray, which I know you've got as well. And I find that works wonders for me. Thank you so much, Clive. Anyone that's watching, please do feel free to put any questions below. We do monitor those, and I will put all Clive's links below. So go and check out his website. Go and check out the Secret Health Club. And if you've got particular topics you want us to cover, feel free to ask. Thank you so much, Clive.
Thank you so much, Catherine. I'd be very happy to, carry on going through the important nutrients one at a time, if you like.
I really think we should. I think it's absolutely invaluable information. So let's arrange to do that, and then perhaps have a talk on all your amazing healing machines as well one day.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Thank you, Clive. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. And if you feel inspired, please do share with your friends and family. This helps us spread the word, and also helps me encourage some exciting new guests to take part in this podcast. And above all, stay curious and stay free.